This just in, it appears that Jeffrey Epstein accuser, Virginia Giuffre, who was one of the more vocal victims of Epstein, has been found dead. She was found dead Friday evening. Her family is saying that there's no foul play or wrongdoing. We can get into all of that, but I think this is a very clear message that has been sent here by the elite, by the establishment, especially considering the warning that Virginia gave us a couple of weeks ago. Let's go ahead and get into that warning first. It was a couple of weeks ago, Virginia Giuffre, it said that she was fighting for her life after a car accident. Let's get into this as a reminder here. Virginia Giuffre, whose story about being trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein as a teenager put her at the center of one of the biggest sex scandals in history, is fighting for her life following a car accident in Australia. Giuffre, 41, on Sunday posted a graphic photo of herself from her hospital bed covered in bruises on Instagram, where she wrote, "Doctors said she had 4 days to live," according to the post, which was first published by the British media. And she went on to say, "Here, I have gone into kidney renal failure. They have given me 4 days to live, transferring me to a specialist in urology. I'm ready to go, just not until I see my babies one last time." And I think a lot of us remember this image of her here. As you can see, it looks like she has bruises. She does not look well. And this was the first alarm bells that I think we all saw, that obviously something is happening to Virginia. And I think this was her way of forewarning us that she could be in danger. She could be in some type of trouble. Now, this is important because now the news that has been reported is that Virginia Giuffre took her own life, that she unalived herself. Now, I don't know about you, but I call BS. I don't believe that. I really do believe that someone came after this woman. And I think this was their way of sending a message to anyone else who is thinking about speaking out. This is why a lot of times victims do not come forward, especially if the attacker is someone who is very powerful. And she was in the mix with people who are very powerful, not just Epstein, but don't forget, she is the woman that is in that infamous photo of Prince Andrew. She's the woman that he is hugging in that photo with Ghislaine Maxwell in the background. She was 17 years old in that photo. You'll hear a little bit more about that in a second as we get to the video clips. She was struck by a speeding school bus as she was making a turn. She did not say when or where the crash happened. Giuffre was among the first and many outspoken victims of Jeffrey Epstein to speak out about her abuse by Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Prince Andrew, and several other prominent men. She later formed a nonprofit to educate and advocate for sex trafficking victims. So let's just send ourselves a reminder here. It wasn't just Prince Andrew and Epstein. There were several other prominent men. I think we also need to remember that Alan Dershowitz, who was Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer, did everything that he could in his power to silence her legally. So this is all connected, ladies and gentlemen. A little bit about Virginia's background. She was born in Sacramento, California. She was sexually abused since a child. So you see, they targeted certain types of women. She is the daughter of Lynn Trude Cabal and Sky William Roberts, who wrote on social media that he was praying for his daughter's recovery. When she was in grade school, the family moved to Loxahatchee, Florida. At 7, she was first molested by a family friend. The abuse, she said, turned my entire life around. Everything changed. She began running away from home, at one point hitching a ride to San Francisco. She was 14 when she was picked up on the streets of Miami by the owner of a modeling agency who began trafficking her. And this is a similar story to what we've heard from other Epstein victims, that these were girls that at that point in time, they were having issues at home. Maybe the family was struggling financially, or they had already been victims of abuse. They targeted certain types of girls. So keep that in mind. It goes on to say here, after his arrest, she returned home to Loxahatchee and began working at Mar-a-Lago, the Palm Beach country club owned by President Trump, where her father was a maintenance supervisor. In 2000, when she turned 16, she met Maxwell, Epstein's partner, while working as a spa attendant at the club. Giuffre, who uses the name Jenna, was introduced by Maxwell to Epstein, who sexually abused and trafficked her for years. Among the people she said she was forced to have sex with, Prince Andrew, whom she later sued. The suit was settled in 2022 for an undisclosed sum said to be in millions, though Andrew denied that he was ever involved with Giuffre. He was later stripped of his military title and his royal patronages. So, and then we move on to Palm Beach investigation. So again, it was Ghislaine Maxwell that was basically doing the recruiting for Jeffrey Epstein. And I've told you guys before, I don't believe that Epstein was the head of the snake. I think the true head of the snake is still out there, and he's the person that they decided was going to be the fall guy. While she was getting settled in Australia, police in Palm Beach began investigating Epstein in 2005. Several girls reported that they had been recruited to give him massages at Palm Beach, at his mansion, and instead they were sexually abused. The case grew as more high school girls told investigators that they were abused by Epstein as teenagers. So this goes all the way back to the Palm Beach investigation. Like I said, there were investigations into Jeffrey Epstein's behavior going all the way back to 2005. That case was referred to the FBI in 2007. But Epstein escaped federal charges when a secret plea deal was reached between his high-powered lawyers and the U.S. attorney in Miami, Alex Acosta. And I think we all know what went on from there. Now, at that point in time, it goes on to say that Giuffre was initially reluctant to cooperate with the FBI probe, but in 2010, after the birth of her daughter, she reached out to the Justice Department again in the hopes that she would get justice. In 2011, she told British tabloid Mail on Sunday that she was a victim of vast sex trafficking operation run by Epstein, in which she was ordered to have sex with multiple men, not just Prince Andrew, but also Prince Andrew. Maxwell denied the allegations and sued Giuffre for defamation. Giuffre countersued in federal court in New York. So we can go into all of the history behind that, but that's just to give you a picture of how far this has gone. So I keep saying in other men, and I think that's very important because everyone knows about Prince Andrew, but there were other men that have not been targeted. There were other men that have not been served. So those other men are still out there. Keep that in mind. And now we hear that she has died. Virginia Giuffre, Jeffrey Epstein, and Prince Andrew Accuser dies at age 41. She was only 41 years old. It goes on to say that her family issued a statement on Saturday confirming that she took her own life at her farm in Western Australia, where she had lived for several years. It is with utterly broken hearts that we announced that Virginia passed away last night at her farm in Western Australia. She lost her life to, and you guys can see this here, we got to be careful because YouTube, she unalived herself after being a lifelong victim of sexual abuse and sex trafficking, the statement read. In the end, the toll of abuse is so heavy that it became unbearable for Virginia to handle its weight. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I don't believe this. There have been a number of people that have come forward, not just with Epstein, but even some of these whistleblower cases that I've covered on the show. We can't forget the young guy who came forward about OpenAI and the danger there, and he was found dead in his apartment. They tried to say that was also self-inflicted. We cannot forget the two whistleblowers for Boeing that I also covered on this show that all of a sudden were found dead. They also tried to say that those guys too, also it was self-inflicted. So I think we are seeing a pattern here that when people try to come after powerful people, all of a sudden those people are no longer alive. They're no longer here to continue telling their story. I believe this is what has happened to to Virginia Giuffre. I believe that somebody hurt her. I do not believe that she hurt herself. I call BS on that, and I think many of you do as well. I believe that this is a way of sending a strong message not to come after the elite, because they will come after you too. And here's a picture of her here. Again, like I said, she was 17 years old in that picture with Prince Andrew. So they captured her when she was very, very young. You cannot imagine what this woman must have dealt with her whole life since then. The family described her as a fierce warrior against sexual abuse and sex trafficking, and a light that lifted so many survivors. She's survived by her 3 children, Christian, Noah, and Emily, who her family said were the light of her life. It was when she held her newborn daughter in her arms that Virginia realized she had to fight back against those who had abused her and so many others. And that was her there coming forward with the press. Ghislaine Maxwell went to prison. Jeffrey Epstein, before even having the full trial, was found dead in his cell. So all of these people just magically are found dead, and we're supposed to believe that they did it themselves. I mean, come on. And never forget what this woman went through, but also never forget the way that Jeffrey Epstein's lawyer, Alan Dershowitz, did everything in his power to make sure that she would be silent and continue to try to get her to stay silent. Now, there are other clues that I think that we can point to, but I want to show you this video of Virginia here when she was talking about her meeting Prince Andrew. This was an NBC News exclusive. Just a reminder.
I was so young. Ghislaine woke me up in the morning and said, "You're going to meet a prince today." I didn't know at that point that I was going to be trafficked to that prince. And then that night, Prince Andrew came to her house in London, and we went out to Club Tramp. Prince Andrew got me alcohol. It was in the VIP section. I'm pretty sure it was vodka. Prince Andrew was like, "Let's dance together." And I was like, okay. And we leave Club Tramp, and I hop in the car with Ghislaine and Jeffrey. And Ghislaine said, "He's coming back to the house, and I want you to do for him what you do for Epstein." I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that even royalty were involved.
Yes. I want you to hear this one more time. There's a couple of things here, big red flags.
So young. Ghislaine woke me up in the morning and said, "You're going to meet a prince today." I didn't know at that point that I was going to be trafficked to that prince.
So this is how they get them, ladies and gentlemen. You're going to meet a prince today. You're going to meet a prince, not that you're going to be abused by that prince. You're going to meet a prince. Keep in mind, she was very young at that time. He then continued to send her. They went to a club. Again, she's a teenager. She says that he got her the alcohol. There's no telling what he put in that drink. No telling whatsoever. So here he is providing alcohol to her to try to find a way to muddle her judgment. This is how these people move. This is how they operate. Absolutely unbelievable. And you can see the person who edited this. Notice that they put that picture of her here when she was in the hospital recently.
And then that night, Prince Andrew came to her house. And
this is Ghislaine. I keep saying her name is Ghislaine, but this is Ghislaine Maxwell right here in the background of the photo. And this photo is very viral. And yet Prince Andrew was still walking around like nothing happened, as if this picture doesn't even exist. What is Prince Andrew doing with a teenage girl? And as you can see, he has his arm wrapped around her. And there's Ghislaine right there in the picture. But people want to pretend like Virginia made this all up. Why else would this grown man who is royalty, why would he be hanging out with this teenage girl?
In London, and we went out to Club Tramp. Prince Andrew got me alcohol. It was in the VIP section. I'm pretty sure it was vodka. Prince Andrew was like, let's dance together. And I was like, okay. And we leave Club Tramp, and I hop in the car with Ghislaine and Jeffrey. And Ghislaine said he's coming back to the house. And I want you to do for him what you do for Epstein.
There you go. So let's talk about this for a second. He got her alcohol. They danced together. That was him trying her out. I'm gonna be very clear. Oh, let's go dancing. That was him trying to test the waters to see if she was going to be willing to go along with whatever he had planned or he wanted to do. That was kind of like an audition. Now, she didn't know that. As a young girl, she didn't know what she was doing, but that's what that was. The next thing you know, they're going back to the house. And Prince Andrew is in touch because he's a prince. These people have been able to do this for the longest time because of who they are, Now, she gave us a sign, not just after that accident, but also here. She made this very public. I am making it publicly known that in no way, shape, or form am I, and it goes on to say there, we got to be careful because of YouTube, but she was not in the form to obviously end her life. I have made this known to my therapist and GP. If something happens to me in the sake of my family, do not let this go away and help me to protect them. Too many evil people want to see me quieted. Does everybody see this? This was a warning. And James Lee shared this. Thank you so much, James. He said, no, she did not unalive herself. This was a warning from Virginia in 2019. She was very public about this, that she had no desire to end her life. And yet, people are still going with this narrative, really trying to believe this narrative. Again, we all have to call BS. You'll hear it here in the BBC segment. Listen to what they say. They don't believe there was any foul play.
Western Australia police say they're not treating her death as suspicious. Katie Watson, BBC News in Sydney.
They are not treating her death as suspicious. Are you freaking kidding me? Just like they didn't want to treat Epstein's death as suspicious, right? No way. There's no way, guys. We'll go on a little bit more here.
I'd like to speak to our Sydney correspondent, Phil Mercer. Phil, what more have the family said?
We've had a pretty poignant statement from Virginia Giuffre's family saying that she was a heroic and courageous campaigner against sexual abuse, and that the stance that she took was a light that lifted the lives of survivors of abuse around the world. So we know that the police and the ambulance authorities in Western Australia were called to a home in the near Gabby area. This is to the north of Perth, the state capital of Western Australia, on Friday evening. And the authorities say that Ms. Giuffre was found there unresponsive, and that family statement saying that she had died by suicide, and that the weight of the abuse that her family say that she has suffered became too heavy, and in the end, for Ms. Giuffre, became unbearable.
But she very much became a figurehead, didn't she, for other survivors of abuse?
Yeah, she was a prominent, not only a prominent accuser of Jeffrey Epstein and his friends, the British socialite Ghislaine Maxwell, who's in prison for sex trafficking offences. She was also a prominent campaigner for the Me Too movement. She had alleged that Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell had trafficked her to Britain's Prince Andrew when she was 17 years of age. Prince Andrew has always strenuously denied these allegations, but in 2022, the Prince did reach an out-of-court settlement with Ms. Giuffre. We don't know the specific details of that settlement, but clearly Virginia Giuffre suffering under the weight, according to her family, of the abuse that they say she suffered repeatedly in certain periods of her life.
Yeah, well, people don't forget being abused. Guys, this is what I was talking about when I say that there's so much attention on red versus blue, and people aren't focusing on the elites, the people who have the wealth, resources, and power to make things go away, to make people disappear. That's the real power, not just in this country, but in the world. This is very, very sad. And I have to say, I cannot believe that the Australian police feel as though there was no foul play. Get out of here. Also, we don't know if they got to her family. We don't know what they said or could have said to her family members at all. Very sad day, but very powerful forces here at work, ladies and gentlemen. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.